The great crystal tower reached high into the purple sky of Centauri Prime. Inside its walls, the most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered for another meeting. 23 different alien species sat around the massive circular table. Some had 4 arms, others had tentacles instead of legs. A few looked like giant insects with clicking sounds coming from their mouths. Captain Jake Morrison walked into the chamber wearing his best uniform. The blue fabric was clean and pressed with small metal badges showing his rank. Behind him came Lieutenant Amy Foster, carrying a briefcase full of papers and data files. They were the only humans in the room. Jake looked around at all the alien faces staring at him. Some had eyes like diamonds, others had no eyes at all. The Zephyrian ambassador had purple skin and moved his 4 arms like he was conducting music. The insect-like Krita made clicking sounds with her mouthparts. At the head of the table sat Speaker Morden, an ancient being whose species had ruled space for thousands of years. "So," Morden said in a voice that sounded bored, "the humans want to join our council." Jake stepped forward and placed his hands on the table. "That's right, Speaker. We've proven we can travel between stars. We've built colonies on 47 worlds. We can trade, fight, and work with other species. We deserve a seat at this table." The room filled with sounds that might have been laughter. The Zephyrian ambassador Vexhai stood up and pointed at a holographic display floating above the table. It showed human ships moving through space like tiny dots. "Look at their technology," Vexhai said, shaking his head. "Their ships are made of metal and powered by burning fuel. They don't even have proper energy shields. They're like children playing with toys." Krita clicked her mandibles together. "Their weapons are so simple. They shoot metal bullets and missiles. We stopped using such things 1,000 years ago." More laughter filled the room. Jake felt his face getting hot with anger, but Amy put her hand on his arm to keep him calm. "Speaker." Morden didn't even look up from the glowing crystals in front of him. "Humans have only had faster-than-light travel for 50 years. 50 years. My species was crossing the galaxy when yours was still living in caves. We may be new to space," Jake said, "but we learn fast. We adapt, we survive." "Survive?" Morden finally looked at Jake. "Child, survival is not the same as civilization. You come from a single world. You've never faced real challenges. You know nothing of the dangers that exist in this galaxy." Ambassador Zilkar of the Hegemony Navy leaned forward. His snake-like body coiled around his chair. "Humans fight among themselves constantly. Your own history shows endless wars. How can we trust a species that can't even make peace with itself?" "Those wars taught us strength," Jake replied. "They taught us to work together when we need to." "Work together?" Krita's clicking sounds grew louder. "Your species almost destroyed itself with nuclear weapons. You poison your own planet. You're barely more civilized than animals." Jake's hands formed fists, but he kept his voice steady. "We came here asking for friendship. We want to trade with other worlds. We want to learn from species older than us. We're offering to help protect the peace you've built." Morden waved one of his long arms dismissively. "Peace? You cannot help with peace when you don't understand it. Your species thinks violence solves problems. That is not how civilized beings behave." The vote happened quickly. Each species pressed a button on their part of the table. Red lights appeared, one by one. 23 red lights. Not a single species voted to let humans join the council. "The decision is final," Morden announced. "Humanity is rejected from council membership. Furthermore, we declare a quarantine around all human space. No council species will trade with humans. No council ship will enter human territory. No human ship will be allowed beyond your current borders." Jake stared at the red lights surrounding him. "You're making a mistake. The only mistake," Zilkar said, "would be letting primitive warmongers into our peaceful alliance." "We tried to come in peace," Jake said quietly. "We brought gifts, we offered friendship. We asked for nothing except a chance to prove ourselves, and you have proven yourselves," Morden replied. "You have proven that you are not ready for civilized society. Perhaps in a few hundred years, when you have grown beyond your violent nature, we might reconsider. Jake picked up his briefcase and walked toward the door. Amy followed close behind. As they reached the exit, Jake turned back to face the council. "You think you know us because you've read our history," he said. "You see our wars and think we're savage. But you don't understand what those wars taught us. You've lived in peace so long you've forgotten what it means to fight for survival." "Is that a threat?" Krita asked, her mandibles clicking rapidly. "No," Jake said. "It's a warning. We came here hoping to be your friends. We wanted to learn from you, to grow alongside you. But if you force us to stand alone, we'll do what humans have always done. We'll adapt, we'll survive, and we'll remember who our friends were when it mattered." The door closed behind them with a soft sound. In the chamber, the aliens returned to discussing more important matters. They had bigger problems than some upstart mammals from the edge of nowhere. Outside, Jake and Amy walked through the crystal halls toward their ship. Other aliens moved past them without making eye contact. Word of the rejection had already spread. "What do we do now?" Amy asked. Jake looked out through the transparent walls at the stars beyond. "We go home. We tell Earth what happened here, and then we prepare." "Prepare for what?" "For the day they realize they made the wrong choice." Their ship lifted off from Zentari Prime an hour later. As they jumped to hyperspace, Jake sent a message back to Earth Command. It was short and simple. "Request denied. Quarantine imposed. Recommend immediate implementation of Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was something Earth's leaders had hoped they would never need. It was the plan for what to do if humanity was rejected by galactic civilization. It was the plan for surviving alone in a hostile universe. The message reached Earth 3 days later. Within hours, every human colony received new orders. The age of trying to make friends was over. The age of proving their worth had begun. 6 months passed after the Council rejected humanity's request. Captain Jake Morrison was back on Earth, sitting in meetings with admirals and generals. The rejection still burned in his mind like a hot coal. The Council had not stopped with just saying no. They had done something much worse. Admiral Lisa Chen stood at the front of the war room, pointing at a huge display screen. Red dots surrounded human space like a wall of fire. Each dot was an alien warship. "They call it the Quarantine Fleet," Lisa said. "Ships from 12 different species. They're stopping every vessel that tries to enter or leave human territory." Commander Ryan Davis, her second in command, pulled up new reports on his tablet. "It gets worse, Admiral. They're not just turning ships away, they're destroying any vessel that refuses to follow their orders." Jake felt sick. "What about medical supplies? Food shipments? There are colonies out there that depend on trade." "The UN Council doesn't care," Lisa replied. "They've declared us a threat to galactic peace. According to them, any contact with humans might spread our violent nature to other species." The first real tragedy happened at New California Colony. A plague had broken out among the settlers. Children were dying. The colony's doctors sent desperate messages asking for medicine and medical equipment. 3 different species tried to help. The Merchants Guild sent a cargo ship full of medicine. The healers of Axiom dispatched their best medical team. Even some individual traders tried to run the blockade with supplies. The Council fleet destroyed them all. Admiral Carthex commanded the blockade from his massive flagship. He was a proud warrior from the Hegemony Navy, with skin like polished metal, and eyes that glowed red in the dark. He had fought in the sector wars and earned medals for keeping peace in the galaxy. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we have another ship approaching the quarantine line. It's carrying medical supplies to the human colony." "Species?" Carthex asked. "Vegan traders, sir. They claim humanitarian reasons." "No exceptions," the Admiral said coldly. The Council was clear. No contact with the humans. Destroy the ship. The trader vessel exploded in a burst of light. Its crew of 6 died instantly. The medical supplies that could have saved hundreds of human children scattered into space as frozen debris. Back on New California, Governor Paul Mitchell watched 43 children die from the plague. He had been a peaceful man before the blockade. He had believed in cooperation and friendship between species. Not anymore. Send a message to Earth Command, he told his communications officer. Tell them the gloves are off. These aliens want to treat us like animals? Then maybe it's time they learned what happens when you corner a dangerous animal. The Council's cruelty reached its peak when they attacked the hospital ship UHS Mercy. The ship was clearly marked with medical symbols. It carried no weapons. Its only mission was to evacuate sick colonists from the Outer Rim. Captain Helen Brooks commanded the Mercy. She had been a doctor before becoming a ship captain. She believed in the sacred duty to help the sick and wounded, no matter what species they were. This is the UHS Mercy, she broadcast on emergency frequencies. We are a medical vessel evacuating civilians. We pose no threat to anyone. The Council. Ships opened fire without warning. Energy beams tore through the Mercy's hull. Emergency alarms screamed as sections of the ship lost air. In the medical bay, patients died as life support systems failed. Helen Brooks died at her post, trying to keep her ship flying long enough to get the patients to safety. She managed to save 96 people. 47 others died in the attack, including 12 children. The news reached Earth like a punch to the gut. Admiral Frank Thompson had been in the military for 30 years. He had fought pirates and rebels. He had seen the worst that humans could do to each other. But this was different. This was aliens killing human children for the crime of being sick. Enough, he said at the emergency meeting. We tried their way. We tried to be civilized. We asked nicely. We followed their rules. And what did it get us? Defense Secretary Karen Walsh looked around the table at the grim faces of Earth's military leaders. What are you suggesting, Frank? I'm suggesting we remind the galaxy why humans conquered their own planet, Thompson said. We didn't become the dominant species on Earth by being nice. We did it by being better at survival than everything else. General Steve Parker nodded slowly. Earth's history is written in blood, Admiral. Every major advance we've made came from conflict. We learned to make fire because we needed to survive ice ages. We built cities because we needed to defend against enemies. We reached for the stars because our world became too small for our ambitions. The Council thinks we're savage because we fight wars, added Colonel Janet Hayes. They don't understand that war is what made us strong. Every human civilization that survived learned the same lesson. Peace is something you win, not something you're given. Dr. Susan Clark, the colony administrator, spoke up. But we tried to be peaceful. We wanted to join their council. We wanted to learn from them. And they answered with blockades and murder, Thompson replied. They killed children, Susan. They destroyed medical ships. They've shown us exactly what their civilization is worth. The vote was unanimous. Earth would no longer seek the Council's approval. They would no longer try to prove themselves worthy of alien acceptance. Instead, they would prove something else entirely. Send word to every colony, every outpost, every human settlement, Thompson ordered. Operation Homecoming is now active. We're done asking for permission. The orders went out through secret channels. Human colonies that had seemed helpless suddenly revealed hidden capabilities. Mining stations became weapons factories. Trade ships became troop transports. Peaceful farmers became soldiers. The Council had made one crucial mistake. They had assumed that because humans were new to space, they were weak. They didn't understand that humans had spent their entire history learning to survive impossible odds. Earth had produced warriors for 10,000 years. Vikings who crossed stormy seas in wooden boats. Roman legions that conquered half the world. Samurai who fought with honor even in defeat. Knights who charged cavalry armed with nothing but courage and steel. The Council was about to learn that humans in space were the same humans who had survived every disaster their homeworld could throw at them. Admiral Thompson stood at the window of his office looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien ships were patrolling human space, believing they had successfully caged a primitive species. They had no idea what was coming. They wanted to see what humans are capable of, Thompson said quietly to his aide. They're about to get their wish. In the secret shipyards of Luna Station, work continued around the clock. Ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen were taking shape in the construction bays. These were not the peaceful exploration vessels humans had built before. These were warships, and they carried the promise of humanity's answer to the Council's arrogance. The blockade had been meant to contain humans. Instead, it had taught them exactly what they needed to know about their neighbors. The galaxy was not as civilized as it pretended to be, and soon everyone would understand what that meant. Deep inside Luna Station, Chief Engineer Kate Williams walked through corridors that had not existed 6 months ago. The moon's interior had been hollowed out and transformed into the largest shipyard humanity had ever built. The sound of construction echoed day and night as thousands of workers built vessels that would change the galaxy forever. "Status report," Kate said to her assistant, Engineer Danny Roberts. Danny looked at his tablet, scrolling through pages of data. "Hull Section 7 is complete. The new armor plating tested better than we hoped. Council energy weapons barely left scratches on the test panels." Kate nodded, watching welders attach massive plates of neutronium-enhanced steel to the ship's frame. The Council had dismissed human technology as primitive. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "What about the weapons systems?" Kate asked. "That's Tony's department," Danny replied, pointing toward the weapons bay. Tony Martinez had been Earth's best weapons designer before the blockade. Now he was something else entirely. He was the man who would give humanity the tools to fight back. "The kinetic accelerators are ready," Tony reported when Kate found him. "We can launch tungsten rods at 60% light speed. The Council's energy shields were never designed to stop solid projectiles moving that fast." Kate studied the massive cannon taking shape in the ship's belly. It looked simple compared to alien energy weapons. But sometimes simple was better. "How much damage will it do?" she asked. Tony smiled grimly. "Remember the asteroid impact that killed the dinosaurs? This will hit harder than that, and we can fire 12 rounds per minute." The ship they were building had no name yet. It was just called Project 1 in the official reports. But the workers had started calling it something else. Retribution. Captain Beth Johnson walked through the completed sections of the ship, inspecting every detail. She had commanded peaceful exploration vessels before the blockade. Now she was learning to command something built for war. "The crew quarters are ready," reported her first officer, Commander Alex Turner. "We can house 2,000 Marines plus the ship's crew." Beth stopped at a viewport and looked out at the construction bay. 17 more ships just like this one were taking shape. Beyond them, smaller vessels filled every available space. Destroyers, cruisers, fighters, support ships. An entire fleet was being born in secret. "Any word from the other colonies?" Beth asked. "New Texas finished their shipyard last week," Alex replied. "They're building smaller ships, but more of them. New California is focusing on medical vessels that can fight. Even the mining colonies are converting their equipment haulers into warships." The transformation was happening across all of human space. The Council's blockade had cut off trade and communication, but it had also given humanity time to prepare without being watched. Dr. Susan Clark had been a peaceful colony administrator. Now she stood in a factory on New California watching workers assemble weapons that could crack planets. "Are we really going to do this?" asked her assistant, Dr. Patricia Adams. "They gave us no choice," Susan replied. "We tried diplomacy. We tried peaceful coexistence. They answered by killing our children." The factory produced more than weapons. It also made something the Council had never learned to value: unity. Humans from every colony, every political party, every religion had come together with a single purpose. They were going to survive, and they were going to make sure everyone understood the price of threatening human lives. Admiral Frank Thompson stood in the command center of Luna Station, surrounded by displays showing the progress of Operation Homecoming. 847 ships were under construction. Each one was designed with lessons learned from studying the Council's tactics. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Emma Harris, "we're receiving final reports from all the colony shipyards. Every world is ahead of schedule." Thompson smiled. The Council thought they were dealing with a minor pest problem. They had no idea they had awakened something that had conquered an entire planet through 10,000 years of warfare. "What about crew training?" he asked. Colonel Janet Hayes stepped forward. She had been in charge of training the new fleet's personnel. "Sir, we've had volunteers from every colony, former military, merchant marines, even civilian pilots wanting to learn combat flying. The anger is intense." "Good," Thompson said. "Anger will keep them sharp. But make sure they remember discipline. We're not going out there to commit genocide. We're going to teach the Council the difference between civilization and weakness." The training programs ran 24 hours a day. Pilots learned to fly ships 3 times larger than anything humanity had built before. Gunners practiced targeting, systems that could hit targets across star systems. Marines prepared for battles that might take place on space stations or alien worlds. Engineer Kate Williams stood in the main assembly bay, watching as the first completed ship prepared for its test flight. The UHS Retribution was beautiful in a deadly way. Its black hull absorbed sensor sweeps like a shadow. Its weapons could turn asteroids into dust. "She's ready," Tony Martinez said, joining Kate at the observation window. "Are we ready?" Kate asked. "As ready as we can be," Tony replied. "The Council has better technology in some areas. Their energy weapons are more advanced. Their shields are stronger. But they've been fighting the same way for centuries. They don't know how to adapt." "And we do?" Tony looked at the ship, thinking about everything that had gone into building it. "Kate, humans have been adapting to survive since we lived in caves. We figured out how to make fire when everything wanted to eat us. We learned to build cities when other tribes wanted to conquer us. We reached the stars when our own world became too small. The Council thinks superior technology wins wars," added engineer Danny Roberts. "They don't understand that wars are won by superior thinking." The test flight was perfect. The Retribution moved through space like a predator, its systems working exactly as designed. Its weapons test turned a small asteroid into vapor in seconds. More importantly, the ship was invisible to Council sensors. Its stealth systems were based on human submarine technology, adapted for space. The Council would never see them coming. Captain Jake Morrison, the man who had first asked the Council for friendship, stood on the bridge of another completed vessel. The UHS Defiance was smaller than the Retribution, but just as deadly. "Any regrets?" asked his new first officer, Lieutenant Amy Foster. Jake thought about the Council chamber where he had tried to make peace. He remembered their laughter when he offered friendship. He remembered their arrogance when they declared humans unworthy of civilization. "Only one," he said. "I regret believing they were better than us." The final ships were completed 18 months after the blockade began. The Council believed their quarantine was successfully containing the primitive humans. Their intelligence. Reports showed no military buildup, no threatening activity. They were wrong about everything. Admiral Thompson called a meeting of all ship captains. The holographic conference room filled with faces from across human space. Men and women who had been teachers, doctors, farmers, engineers. Now they were the commanders of the most powerful fleet in galactic history. "Ladies and gentlemen," Thompson began, "for 18 months, the Council has treated us like children throwing a tantrum. They've ignored our communications, destroyed our medical ships, and let our civilians die to maintain their blockade." The faces on the display showed the same expression: cold determination. "Today, we end their blockade," Thompson continued. "Not by asking permission, not by begging for mercy. We end it by showing them what humans do when pushed too far." Captain Beth Johnson raised her hand. "Admiral, what are our rules of engagement?" "Simple," Thompson replied. "Any Council ship that fires on human vessels will be destroyed. Any Council ship that surrenders will be escorted out of human space. Any Council ship that tries to run will be allowed to leave so they can tell their superiors what happened." "And if they refuse to leave human space?" asked Captain Jake Morrison. Admiral Thompson's expression hardened. "Then they'll learn why. Earth's dominant species wasn't the biggest, strongest, or most peaceful creature on the planet. They'll learn why humans survived when everything else went extinct." The fleet launched in complete communications silence. No radio chatter. No unnecessary transmissions. 847 ships moving through hyperspace like ghosts. The Council was about to receive an education in human nature. They would learn the difference between being civilized and being weak. They would understand that humanity's Greatest strength was not their technology or their numbers. It was their absolute refusal to surrender when survival was at stake. Senior technician Yolvak had been monitoring the edge of human space for over a year. His crystalline body was perfectly suited for long shifts at the sensor station. He rarely moved, rarely spoke, and never missed anything important. Until today. Impossible, he whispered, his diamond-like features flickering with alarm. The displays showed energy readings throughout human space, not the small signatures of cargo ships or civilian transports. These were massive, powerful readings moving in perfect formation. Alert Admiral Carthex immediately, Yolvak said to his assistant. I'm detecting major fleet movements in human territory. Admiral Carthex had commanded the Council blockade for 18 months. In all that time, he had seen nothing more threatening than desperate attempts to break through with medical supplies. The humans had been quiet, almost too quiet. How many ships? Carthex asked as he arrived at the sensor station. Sir, the computer shows over 800 vessels, Yolvak replied. But that cannot be correct. Human space doesn't have the industrial capacity to build such a fleet. Carthex studied the display. His red eyes glowed brighter as he concentrated. Run a full diagnostic on the sensor array. These readings must be errors. Sir, I've already done that 3 times. The readings are accurate. The Admiral felt something he had not experienced in decades. Uncertainty. The humans had been contained for over a year. Their communications had gone silent months ago. Intelligence reports suggested they were struggling to survive under the blockade. This made no sense. The first wave of human ships dropped out of hyperspace like a school of metallic sharks. They appeared across 3 star systems simultaneously, their black hulls absorbing sensor sweeps and reflecting no light. On the Council flagship, Tactical Officer Vexakul stared at his instruments in disbelief. Sir, they're not showing up properly. On our scanners, I can see them with visual confirmation, but our targeting systems are having trouble locking on. Admiral Carthex watched the human fleet deploy into battle formation. The ships moved with precision that spoke of extensive training and coordination. This was not the desperate charge of cornered animals. This was the calculated advance of a professional military force. Open a communication channel, Carthex ordered. The main display flickered to life, showing the bridge of a human warship. Admiral Frank Thompson sat in the command chair, his expression calm and confident. Behind him, human officers worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. This is Admiral Frank Thompson of the Human Colonial Defense Force, Thompson said. You have blockaded our space, attacked our civilians, and declared us unworthy of recognition. We are here to correct your mistake. Carthex straightened in his chair, calling upon decades of military experience. Human fleet, you are vastly outnumbered. The Council blockade consists of ships from 23 advanced civilizations. Your primitive vessels cannot hope to match our firepower. Surrender now and we will consider lenient terms. Thompson's smile was cold as winter. Admiral Carthex, your intelligence files are incomplete. Allow me to educate you about human history. The human fleet continued its advance, weapon systems powering up. Energy readings spiked across Council sensors as the black ships revealed their true nature. We are a species that evolved on a world where everything tried to kill us. Thompson continued. We survived ice ages that would have ended most civilizations. We endured volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for years. We lived through asteroid impacts that shattered continents. Captain Jenny White commanded the destroyer UHS Vengeance. Her ship was smaller than the Council battleships, but its weapons were designed with 18 months of pure human innovation. She watched her targeting systems lock onto 3 enemy vessels. Sir, her weapons officer reported. Targets acquired. Kinetic accelerators ready to fire. Hold position, Jenny replied. Let the Admiral finish his speech. On the Council flagship, Admiral Carthex was beginning to understand that something had gone very wrong with their intelligence assessments. The human ships were larger than expected, their formations too precise, their approach too confident. We unified our planet not through diplomacy, Thompson continued, but through 10,000 years of constant warfare. We learned to kill with rocks, then bronze, then iron, then steel. We split the atom and turned it into a weapon before we learned to use it for power. Tactical Officer Vex Cool checked his readings again. Sir, I'm detecting weapons systems unlike anything in our databases. These are not energy weapons. They appear to be kinetic accelerators? Kinetic weapons? Carthex asked. No advanced species has used kinetic weapons for centuries. That's because advanced species think they know everything, Thompson said, apparently having heard the exchange. You called us primitive mammals. You're about to learn why mammals became Earth's dominant species. The tension was building across both fleets. Council ships powered their energy weapons, creating a light show of charged particles and plasma fields. Human ships remained dark, their weapons hidden but ready. You see, Admiral, Thompson continued, we don't just adapt to our environment. We reshape it to suit our needs. When the environment becomes hostile, we become more hostile. When faced with extinction, we become extinction. Commander Alex Turner stood beside Captain Beth Johnson on the bridge of the UHS Retribution. The massive ship was humanity's new flagship, bristling with weapons that could crack moons. Admiral Thompson is enjoying this, Alex observed. Can you blame him? Beth replied. They laughed at us in that council chamber. They called us savages. Now they get to see what real savages look like. The council fleet began moving into attack formation. Their energy weapons created brilliant displays of power, showing off technology that had dominated the galaxy for millennia. Admiral Carthex made his final attempt at diplomacy. Human vessels, you are making a grave mistake. We represent the combined military might of 23 civilizations. Your small fleet cannot possibly stand against us. Small fleet? Thompson asked. Admiral, you're looking at 847 warships, each one built in the last 18 months while you thought you had us contained. The number hit the council bridge like a physical blow. Vexicul double-checked his readings. Sir, he's correct. I'm reading 847 distinct vessels. How did they build so many ships without us detecting it? Because you weren't looking for the right things, Thompson answered. You were watching for energy signatures like your own ships. You never thought to look for vessels designed to be invisible to your sensors. Captain Jake Morrison sat on the bridge of the UHS Defiance, remembering his failed diplomatic mission to the council. He had tried to make peace. He had offered friendship and cooperation. They had answered with mockery and violence. Sir, his weapons officer reported, the council fleet is powering weapons. They're preparing to fire. Good, Jake said quietly. I was hoping they would fire first. Admiral Thompson's voice carried across all human ships on a secure channel. All vessels prepare to implement Protocol Apex. Show them how humans fight. The council fleet opened fire first, just as the humans had expected. Brilliant beams of energy lanced across space, targeting the dark human ships. The attack was coordinated and powerful, exactly the kind of display that had cowed other species for centuries. The energy beams struck human hulls and dispersed harmlessly. On the council flagship, Vexicul stared at his readings in shock. Sir, our weapons had no effect. Their hull plating is absorbing and dispersing our energy weapons. Impossible, Carthex said. Our plasma cannons can cut through any known material. Any known material, Thompson agreed over the communication channel. But you don't know human materials. We learned metallurgy the hard way, Admiral. When your ancestors were building their first cities, humans were forging steel in fires hot, enough to melt stone. The human fleet's response was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of energy weapons, they fired solid projectiles accelerated to enormous velocities. Tungsten rods moving at 60% of light speed punched through council shields like they were made of paper. The kinetic impact alone was enough to shatter battleship hulls. Council vessels that had ruled space for centuries were torn apart by primitive kinetic weapons. Admiral Carthex watched his formation disintegrate around him. Ships that had seemed invincible were being destroyed by weapons that looked like oversized bullets. How? He whispered. Because you forgot the first rule of warfare, Thompson replied. It doesn't matter how advanced your technology is if your enemy finds a way around it. We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years, Admiral. We know every trick there is. The battle was already over, though the Council didn't realize it yet. The human fleet moved through space like a pack of wolves, using tactics developed through millennia of warfare. They scattered when attacked, regrouped behind cover, and struck from unexpected angles. Most importantly, they fought as one. Every human ship could think independently while maintaining perfect coordination with the fleet. It was something no other species had ever achieved. The Council was learning that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology. It was their absolute refusal to accept defeat when survival was at stake. The Council's first attack lit up space like a deadly fireworks display. 23 different species had contributed their best weapons technology to the blockade fleet. Energy beams that could cut through asteroids, plasma bolts that burned hotter than stars, and particle accelerators that could disintegrate matter at the atomic level. All of it struck human ships and accomplished nothing. Admiral Frank Thompson watched the light show from the bridge of his flagship and smiled. All ships execute Protocol Apex. Show them what 18 months of human engineering can accomplish. The human response was immediate and devastating. Instead of the expected energy weapons, they fired chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. Tungsten rods, depleted uranium slugs, and neutronium-tipped penetrators moving at 60% of light speed. Captain Jenny White of the UHS Vengeance watched her main gun send a solid projectile through 3 Council ships in a single shot. The kinetic impact alone was enough to crack their hulls open like eggs. Target destroyed, her weapons officer reported calmly. Acquiring new targets. Reload and fire at will, Jenny ordered. Around her, the human fleet moved like a pack of predators. They had trained for this moment for 18 months, and it showed in every maneuver. On the Council flagship, Admiral Carthex stared at his tactical display in growing horror. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for centuries were being destroyed by primitive kinetic weapons. His formations were falling apart as captains tried to adapt to tactics they had never seen before. "Sir," Tactical Officer Vexkull reported, his voice cracking with panic. "They're not fighting like any known species. Their coordination is perfect, but their tactics are completely unpredictable." "How are they moving so fast?" Carthex demanded. As human ships seemed to dance around Council positions, his own vessels were powerful but slow, designed for the stately battles that had characterized galactic warfare for millennia. "Sir, their ships appear to be much lighter than ours," Vexkull replied. "They've sacrificed heavy armor for speed and maneuverability. But somehow their light armor is stopping our weapons while their weapons are cutting through our heavy armor." What the Council couldn't understand was that humans had approached the problem differently. Instead of building bigger guns and thicker armor, they had found ways to make energy weapons useless while perfecting kinetic weapons that could penetrate any defense. Admiral Thompson opened a channel to the entire Council fleet. "Attention, Council forces. You're fighting a losing battle against physics. Your energy shields were designed to stop other energy weapons. They can't stop solid matter moving at relativistic speeds." Captain Beth Johnson commanded the massive UHS Retribution, humanity's new flagship. Her ship was 3 times larger than the old exploration vessels, but it moved through space like a dancer. When Council ships tried to focus fire on her, she simply wasn't where they expected her to be. "Engineering, what's our status?" she asked. "All systems green, Captain," came the reply from Chief Engineer Kate Williams. "Hull integrity at 100%. The Council's energy weapons aren't even scratching our paint." "Weapons status?" "Kinetic accelerators are operating perfectly," reported weapons specialist Tony Martinez. "We've destroyed 12 enemy vessels and barely used 10% of our ammunition." The tide of battle shifted decisively when Admiral Lisa Chen's battle group executed a maneuver that should have been impossible. Her ships scattered like startled birds when the Council fleet concentrated fire on them, then reformed behind the enemy lines in perfect synchronization. "This is impossible," Admiral Carthex said as his fleet found itself surrounded. "They're using our own destroyed vessels as cover. What kind of species fights like this?" The answer came from Intelligence Officer Zilkar, whose snake-like body was coiled tightly around his chair in stress. "Sir, They're not fighting like individuals. The entire human fleet is operating as a single organism. Every ship knows where every other ship is going to be. What the Council couldn't comprehend was uniquely human, the ability to function as both individuals and as part of a greater whole. Every human pilot could think independently while maintaining perfect coordination with their comrades. It was a skill learned through 10,000 years of pack hunting and tribal warfare. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the UHS Defiance, one of the smaller human destroyers. His ship had been built for speed and stealth, designed to strike fast and disappear before the enemy could respond. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "Council cruiser at bearing 27 Mark IV is trying to retreat." "Let him go," Jake ordered. "We want survivors to tell their story." That was part of the human strategy. They weren't trying to commit genocide or destroy every Council ship. They were sending a message. The survivors would carry word back to their governments about what happened when you pushed humans too far. The battle reached its climax when the Council fleet's flagship, Admiral Carthex's massive dreadnought, found itself alone. The rest of his fleet had been destroyed or scattered. His ship's shields were failing under the constant barrage of kinetic weapons. "Sir," Vexcool reported, "all escort vessels are gone. We're receiving surrender offers from the human fleet." Admiral Carthex stared at the tactical display. In 30 years of military service, he had never been defeated. His species had ruled space for centuries. The idea of surrendering to primitive mammals was almost incomprehensible. "Admiral Thompson," he said over the communication channel, "you've made your point. What are your terms?" Thompson's image appeared on the main screen, his expression calm and professional. "Simple, Admiral. You and your surviving ships will leave human space immediately. You will not return. The blockade is ended. And if we refuse? Then you'll join the rest of your fleet in whatever afterlife your species believes in." To emphasize the point, human ships moved into position around the Council flagship. Their weapons were powered and ready, but they weren't firing. The message was clear: surrender or die. Admiral Carthex looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They had families, homes, lives to return to. The blockade was supposed to have been a simple police action against primitive rebels. Instead, it had become a massacre. "We surrender," he said quietly. The human fleet allowed the surviving Council ships to limp away. 17 vessels out of the original 64-ship blockade force. The rest were floating debris, testament to the price of underestimating humanity. Admiral Thompson opened a channel to broadcast across the galaxy. His message would reach every Council world, every alien government, every species that had voted to quarantine human space. "This is Admiral Frank Thompson of the Human Colonial Defense Force," he began. 18 months ago, humanity asked for recognition and friendship from the Galactic Council. We were rejected and declared a threat to galactic peace. The Council responded to our request for diplomacy with military force. They blockaded our space, destroyed our medical ships, and killed our children. They believed that superior technology would allow them to treat us like animals. The image of human warships filled the transmission, sleek black vessels that had just destroyed the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Today, the Council learned the difference between being civilized and being weak. We proved that humanity's greatest strength is not our technology or our numbers. It is our absolute refusal to surrender when our survival is at stake. In the crystal spires of Centauri Prime, the Council chambers erupted in panic as the reports came in. Speaker Mordun, his ancient composure finally shattered, stared at tactical displays showing the complete destruction of their blockade fleet. "How did this happen?" he demanded. "They were supposed to be primitive barbarians." Ambassador Vexhai, his forearms trembling with shock, delivered the final intelligence assessment. "They were never primitive, Speaker. They were patient. They didn't want war, they wanted acceptance. But when we forced them to choose between submission and survival, they chose survival. And now? Now they've proven they can destroy any fleet we send against them. Our energy weapons are useless against their armor. Their kinetic weapons can penetrate our strongest shields. Worse, they fight with coordination we've never seen before. The final message from Admiral Thompson arrived, as the Council debated their response. "The quarantine of human space is hereby ended," Thompson announced. "Any species that attempts to reimpose it will be considered an act of war. We tried diplomacy first, but you responded with violence. Therefore, the Council may now submit an application for peaceful coexistence with the Human Colonial Alliance. We'll consider it, if you can prove you've learned to behave in a civilized manner." For the first time in galactic history, the Council faced a species that had beaten them not through superior technology, but through superior strategy, adaptability, and the kind of determination that came from millions of years of evolutionary pressure. The message was clear. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage not as supplicants begging for acceptance, but as conquerors claiming their rightful place among the stars. The age of human expansion had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Admiral Thompson closed the transmission and looked out at the stars. Somewhere among them were worlds that would become human colonies, species that would become human allies, and challenges that would test human resolve. Humanity had proven they could fight